Let me check my text.
And we're live as my mentee tries to put me in check. But it's okay. Welcome to another edition of the Houston Roundball Review presents Folks Talking Sports. I am one of the co-hosts, Kris Gardner of Houston Roundball Review. Joining me right now is Andy Yanez, who I guess he doesn't want folks to know he's with Pawd, Slama, Jama, or his community impact newspaper anymore.
It
so he
doesn't
just
fit.
Andy Yanez and Tamer Knight. And now the fourth member, we'll have a fifth one joining a few minutes. Willy Gibson from WTG Sports is here, as well as Tamer Knight of. Are you still at the Night Agenda, Tamer, or does that still apply?
Absolutely.
Okay. And well, honestly, people, first of all, thank you for joining. How you doing?
Oh, great.
I was kind of leery of what we're going to talk about as of Wednesday or Thursday. I know Will's going to talk about the Ohio State game versus Minnesota. And then I was like, okay, then what else? Of course, we're going to talk about UVA versus Texas Tech. But then I was like, well, okay, that'll be about 45 minutes. Then what are we going to do? Problem solved. No problem with that.
It's solved.
We can talk now about, I guess it's getting closer and closer by the hour that the Big 12 is going to invite 4 schools to join as members: BYU, Cincinnati, UCF, and the University of Houston. Different info has been being reported all day from various colleagues and sources. Folks, this really seems like it's going to happen. Let me say this. As a U of H alum, we are used to being burned before. We've been this close before at the 2-yard line before. It didn't happen. 5 years ago, I heard from a lot of folks in the business, alums, connected, everybody. U of H is going to be in the Big 12. It's done. Nope. Previous years, going back further, going to Conference Media Day, driving up with a colleague in the car, doing a story. He gets a call from a source. It's done. Nope. But this time, as of September 3rd, 2021, it seems like it's going to happen. Going to go to Tamer Knight first. What are your thoughts on the University of Houston joining the Big 12?
I have a quick question before I answer. So I saw that on Twitter. It was just football joining the Big 12. Would that apply to all sports, or would that just be football joining the Big 12?
All sports for all 4 schools.
Oh, awesome. I think the competition level is going to be a little bit greater for U of H coming out of the American Athletic Conference, but I don't think it's nothing that they can adjust to.
Andy, what do you say?
Obviously, it's great when you focus from the money standpoint that these schools. Well, first of all, what I think the American Athletic Conference, like I mentioned before, this move will cripple them. The 3 programs that they end up losing in UCF, Cincinnati, and Houston, which have been reportedly the 3 from the American Athletic Conference that the Big 12 is looking at adding. Then you add another team like BYU. I think those are 4 solid additions to the Big 12. And it's interesting that with a couple of reports today, I believe it was Sports Illustrated that said they'd be looking at adding all 4 of these schools by the 2023 season, which as of now would make it before UT and OU left, which that was intriguing as well. And I asked you, Kris, do you feel like UT and OU would still be in the Big 12 if that happened by 2023?
Hold that thought. Will, what are your thoughts first of the announcements, all of them today, about the Big 12 adding these 4 schools? Uh-oh. We can't hear you, Will.
Will's muted.
His mic is open, but I don't hear him. Nope. See, Tamer stole Will's power. Because his mic is not muted on my end. Try again, Will. Because we're not going anywhere. Come back and to us, and we'll try again. Those darn gremlins get us on Fridays and Sundays, Andy. So, but as you referenced about the Sports Illustrated article, there are a few things. I'm not sure about the 2023 timeline. You know, Ross Dellinger and Pat Forty Ross reported from SI that it's a possibility that the Big 12 could be the Big 14 with Texas and OU for a year before they leave to go to the SEC. I don't know if that works. Try again, Will. How's that? Nope.
Might be an issue with his computer with the mic settings.
And Will and I were just on yesterday on the lunch break with KYK with no problems. He was on with AJ and I was on the second hour. This is very strange, but okay.
I'll try leaving and see if that works.
Well, no. I mean, you can try, but I don't think it's on your end though, Tamer. We just got to figure it out. You know, gremlins get us. But I just don't see. This is my perspective on all of this, and get your thoughts on it, everybody. The possibility of Texas, Oklahoma, and everybody else part of a Big 14 for a year. I just don't see that happening. I don't see U of H, Cincinnati, and UCF staying in the American for the full 27 months that they have to give notice. Exit fee is going to be huge for UH, UCF, Cincinnati. It's $10 million. Negotiate. And from that perspective, I just want to come from this angle. What's the point? Why keep these schools where they don't want to be? Why keep Texas, Oklahoma for next year? They don't want to be there. Why keep U of A, Cincinnati, UCF in the AAC for extra months? They don't want to be there. Or negotiate. Thank you for your time. We appreciate our membership in Conference X. Now it's time to move forward. Let's agree on the money and go forward. Thoughts on that?
Yeah, I agree. Theoretically speaking, in a perfect world, that's how it would work. You know, heck, whether it's UT, OU, listen, we want to go to the SEC, we'll do it as soon as possible. Or if it's UH or any of the other American Athletic Conference schools, but you know, you look at it. It's something we've spoken on. Honestly, it always comes back to the money aspect. And, you know, like you mentioned, you could totally see those three American Athletic Conference schools leaving earlier. But, you know, what the American Athletic Conference is going to want, now, go ahead, you can do it. But they're going to probably ask for a lot more payout. But I agree. In a perfect world, it should be, okay, we have this invitation to go to this conference. Let's do it. See you. But it doesn't always work out that way.
True. Tamer, what do you think about my pie in the sky scenario?
I mean, I agree. But I was actually just looking on Twitter and I saw something that said Matt Mueller from KHOU, he said that the deal was already finalized.
That's a source.
Well, yeah, everybody says the deal is finalized, but take it from a person who's been a part of it 5 years ago. I've been told the deal was finalized twice. About U of H joining the Big 12. Twice. Didn't happen. So until the announcement is made, presidents are supposed to vote Friday. Let me go back to Sports Illustrated because part of it says UCF, Houston, BYU, and Cincinnati are expected to apply for Big 12 membership next week. And then the presidents are supposed to vote on it as early as next Friday. So if that happens, okay, then that's next week.
Mm-hmm.
So until then, I mean, apparently U of H legend Andre Ware said during football broadcast this evening, he thinks Houston should wait to be invited by the Pac-12 to join the Pac-12 instead of joining the Big 12. Yeah, I don't see that happening at all. Will, are you there?
I am here. Can you hear me now?
All right, there we go. Yes, sir.
There we go.
Thoughts on it? Just add your 2 cents.
I'm at about 12 million, but I digress.
Go for it.
But no, yeah, well, without question, it's a good move for all schools. You and I talked earlier. It's triple the money payout from the AAC to what the Big 12 is expected to pay out to those three schools at least. And then to localize it for me here in Ohio, Cincinnati, I know there's some talk about Cincinnati potentially joining the Big Ten, but they never wanted to be the little brother. It's already the little brother syndrome that they have with Ohio State, and to join the same conference as Ohio State, that never was going to happen from their perspective. And then, I don't know, the cynic in me, just when I see that, love to see the travel itineraries for those women's volleyball matches between BYU and Cincinnati. I love to see that.
BYU and UCF.
Yeah.
Well, we all know this ain't about the Olympic sports.
No.
This is a football move, and then you get to men's basketball and women's basketball first down line, and then everybody else.
Right.
Okay, let me read this. And this tweet, just saw it from a source. Love the sources. The Big 12 is getting a short 5-year extension on the current TV contract. This is from C. Austin Cox, who covers a lot of AAC sports. A 5-year extension on the TV contract to show BYU, UC, UCF, and Houston stability. ESPN could not get West Virginia into the ACC. Next move was to strengthen the Big 12 with additions, allowing Texas and Oklahoma to leave early. ESPN's in game through all this. That's ESPN is a player here. I'm gonna get back to you, Andy and Will. Last Friday, I asked y'all if y'all thought the comments from Bob Bowlesby, the public comments accusing ESPN of colluding with the American Athletic Conference, would shut the door on ESPN and future negotiations with the Big 12. Both y'all said yes.
Yeah.
Right?
Yep.
And I was surprised that y'all said yes. And then I tossed out there, what about, money talks, folks. Money, strange things happen. People change their tune, negotiations, all those things. Well, days later, here we go. But this is what I think, because, last week I was hot about the report from Max Olson that the current members of the Big 12, leftover 8, were leery of adding Houston because of Tillman Fertitta's comments 5 years ago, calling the process then a sham. And I called out all those folks, called them cowards. 4 days later, the stance is softened from those member schools, and they're okay with Houston joining the conference. I wonder what changed. Could it be ESPN, the sports higher-ups and TV said, look, the TV numbers that y'all have right now aren't good with your 8. You're going to add Houston. We need that Houston market. You're going to add them. You're going to take the money we're going to give you, and you're going to like it. I think that's how this all came down. Last week, when the Pac-12 and the Alliance announced with Big Ten and ACC, and they said they were not going to expand and invite teams from the leftover 8, the options for those schools dwindled. So instead of allowing the American to be aggressive and poach them, the big leftover 8 was the aggressors and poached the Big 3 schools from the American. That's how I think this plays out. And let me say this one thing. As long as the Big 12 has autonomy status and the AAC does not, advantage Big 12. So that's why I'm fine with Houston going to the Big 12. Now, I'm not saying 5 years from now, if the Pac-12 comes calling, Houston won't go to Pac-12. Because, for a while, TCU was a vagabond. TCU bounced around from a few conferences before joining the Big 12. So that could happen 5 years from now. Right now, I'm just saying, whatever deal they get with ESPN, the new deal, new TV contract, let's say it's $20 million per school. That's less for the leftover 8. It's going down from 35 to 20. But for U of H, Cincinnati, and UCF, that's more than 6.
Yeah.
Okay. That's more than 6. That's more than 7. So this is no-brainer for me from those 3 schools' perspective. Heck, BYU's contract with ESPN for football I've seen different reports. It's about 4 million to 6 million. Once again, 20 million is more than 4 or 6. So for people questioning, well, why would these 4 schools join the Big 12? It's a weak conference. Do the math. You deal with the other things 5 years down the line. But right now, take this deal and make the best of it. Tamer, your thoughts first.
I mean, now that you bring up the money and the aspects and you break it down that way, I think, like you said, U of H, if they do end up bouncing around, I think that's great. I think it's more money. They get more exposure on their games being on television. And my main concern, though, will be, obviously, if Cincinnati and these teams move from the AAC, it's the same level of competition for U of H as far as those teams. But what about the other teams that we've seen, do numbers in the past seasons? How would that not belittle, but, decrease the amount of potential that U of H has within the conference?
Oh, I think U of H in the Big 12 opens up recruiting channels that they did not get, or do not get currently in the American. Just the label of saying to potential recruits, we're a Power 5 conference. That's going to carry some weight. That is big. And people can say, oh, they're Power 5 for only a few more years. They're Power 5. Period. They're a Power 5. Right now in the American, Commissioner Michael Resco can say, we're a P6 conference. He says that. Employees of the conference say that. Nobody else considers the American a power conference. Houston, UCF, Cincinnati in the Big 12, they're power conference schools. That carries cachet. That's going to be important and a benefit in recruiting. Not sure where Andy went, but here he is, because I want to get him on this next scenario. What's the TV deal? I wonder. So this is what I suggest happens. I would like to see the new Big 12 reach out to CBS, not CBS Sports, CBS Network, to replace SEC football. You have then, because the SEC is going to be on ESPN all over the place. They're going to get all the primetime slots. You go to CBS and negotiate. We like the 2:30 slot on CBS. CBS give you, it won't be SEC money, but let's say it works out to $10 million per school. You add that, combine that to your ESPN deal, then your money starts $20 million plus 10. That's $30 million. You're getting closer to what the Big 12 leftover 8 has right now. If CBS wants content, they need to fill that content. Beat CBS, beat the Pac-12 to CBS in those time slots. Thoughts on that? Anybody?
Yeah, I think from a financial perspective, I'd imagine you're already looking at if they do decide to add those 4 schools and everything goes through as it is being reported by several outlets. That would be the smart thing to do. Especially that was something I was going to mention before I got cut off. In terms of the ESPN deal that we just saw, is that is a report correct? The 5-year.
It's an extension. Yeah, I think that's an extension because, and this is all going to play out. And this is one thing that U of H, the new schools, and BYU, because BYU's deal with ESPN for football was a 6-year deal. Both of they signed that, I think, last year. So they still had some years on that deal with ESPN. So they got to renegotiate and change a lot of things. BYU, as an independent in football, they have already scheduled football opponents for years and years in the future. So what's going to happen with that? So there's a lot of things still in the air and still to be determined. But the money aspect, BYU's time slot as a Mountain West team, 8:30, 9 o'clock. Okay, that gets you one time slot on ESPN. Then you got to fill others on ESPN2, but you got that CBS time slot, 2:30 in the afternoon. Somebody got to get it. Assuming, of course, CBS wants to get back in college football. I think they don't want to pay what the SEC was commanding. So I just tossed it out there. Be proactive. You got Cincinnati market, Houston market, Dallas market, BYU is a national brand. Come on, CBS. Join the fray. James Mueller from the Daily Cougar. How are you, sir?
Good. How are y'all?
No Astro cap on today for James. Okay.
No,
Got the haircut? Looking sharp there, James. I like that.
thank you.
All right, Mr. Daily Cougar sports editor. Share your opinions on the rumors / reports about Houston being part of the 4 guys joining the Big 12.
Yeah, I mean, I've heard from people everything that's been reported in terms of, that a vote should be, or like they should make their official request to join the Big 12 early next week. And then I think it's September 10th is the date the Big 12 will vote on, approving those requests. I think it's definitely last week at Cage Rage, which was the UH football pep rally. Chris Pesman hinted at that when he was speaking to some of the Cougar Pride members, which is the donor club, just saying there was a lot of opportunities that they were exploring, and that he was excited for where the school may end up. So I think this was expected. Of course, nothing's official yet. So, I mean, we got to wait for it to become official. But I think ultimately it's a good move for Houston, just in terms of money and just getting into that Power 5 label that they've always wanted to be in, because, the American considers themselves a Power 6, but they haven't gotten that respect. So I think it is a definite boost for the University of Houston as a whole.
Well, let me see if I can pull up the numbers here. From fiscal year 2020, per school, Big 10, 54.3 million. It's from USA Today.
Yep.
SEC, 45.5 million. This is per school. Big 12, 37 million to 40.5 million per school. That's excluding local media rights, because there's no really Big 12 linear network. Pac-12, 33.6 million per school. ACC, 30.9 million to 37 million per school. The American per school is 6. Okay, 6 to 7. So even when Texas and Oklahoma leave the Big 12, projections are the per school number per million per school would go down to 20 million per school. Once again, viewers, this is a no-brainer. Get that bag while you can.
Why not?
Get that money. Well, and this is before the Big Ten renegotiates a new deal. This is before the SEC's TV deal with ESPN kicks in. So I'm really surprised at the folks questioning or hating on this is 5 years too late. 20 million, 6 million. What's done is done. 20 million, 6 million. Tamer. Got a question from Juan M. And this, I think you missed this. We touched on a little bit right at the beginning. Tamer, answer this question. What are your thoughts on these 4 schools, Houston, UCF, Cincinnati, BYU, joining the new Big 12, while Oklahoma and Texas are in the Big 12, making it Big 14 for a year?
I mean, it's going to be. I agree what you said when I asked about the potential U of H has in the Big 12, upgrading from the AAC. To me, it's just the level of competition is going to be different. While UT and Oklahoma may not be the two top teams in football for the conference. They are. I think they have a little bit more of a. They pose more of a challenge or a threat to U of H and Cincinnati, and the other two, Houston, Cincinnati. But I mean, as far as for me, it's just a level of competition. I think we've kind of seen these teams play each other in like off seasons and things, and we see what happened. Like often, it's never really a good game for U of H or these other teams that go against these powerhouse schools. But like I said, I'm just eager to see what it is that they can do. And if it is a Big 14, then hey, I mean, we all know that Oklahoma and Texas will only be there for a year. So I think this will be the time for U of H, Cincinnati, and BYU and all the other schools to just showcase what they're capable of before these two guys leave the conference.
James, what are your thoughts on a possible negotiation buyout between the Big 12, Texas and Oklahoma, then UH, UCF, Cincinnati with the American? I think it needs to happen.
Yeah.
Move on. What are your thoughts?
I mean, I agree with you. I think this is very similar to, like the James Harden Rocket situation. When you have a guy that clearly doesn't want to be there, it just looks bad on the entire organization. And the same thing like UT and OU have expressed, they don't want to be in the Big 12 anymore. They're ready to move on to the SEC. And even though they can't do that for a while technically because of their contract, I mean, it's not the best look for the Big 12. So I think a buyout will happen. I don't think either of UT or OU will be in the Big 12 through the length of their contract. I think they will get to the SEC sooner. And the same thing for the American. These schools already, I mean, assuming this goes through and, it's made official, schools like UH, Cincinnati, UCF, BYU, they've expressed, we're ready to jump ship. We're ready to come to the Big 12. So what's the point of them sticking in their conferences? That's just my thoughts on that.
And from the Americans' perspective, this is for everybody. You need to move on too. You need to invite replacements. So the sooner you form your new conference, why wait? Why prolong this? Why have during the broadcast of your games? Well, Houston Cougars are playing Cincinnati. Well, both of them are going to the Big 12. Houston Cougars are playing UCF. Well, both of them are going to the Big 12. Houston Memphis basketball. Well, Houston's going to the Big 12 over and over and over. Who wants to hear that for 3 years or 2 years and 3 months? Why do that? Why go through that? Andy, you're right. The money's huge. SI talked about in the article today, I thought the money was $80 million per school, period. Ross talked about the grant of rights and exit fees. That's two different things. So that's almost like $200 million per school, for Texas and Oklahoma. That's a lot of money. So from that perspective, obviously I could see the Big 12 leftover 8 wanting that money. But same thing with them. Do you want over and over? Do you want media? Every media event, game, etc. Well, the Longhorns really want to be in the SEC. Oklahoma really wants to be in the SEC. Media days, coaches, administrators, presidents. What are your thoughts about this? What do you thought about? Well, Texas is going to leave eventually, right? Why are you prolonging this? What about that aspect of it, Andy?
Yeah, real quick, I wanted to go back to from a Big 12 standpoint. If there was a bit of a gap where you have the 4 teams, Houston, Cincinnati, UCF, and BYU joining for whether it's a season in 23 or 24, one of those years before UT and OU leave and they decide not to give the payout to leave early. From a selfish standpoint, James, you mentioned the James Harden, how that was when he left. I think from a selfish standpoint, from the fans, I keep it a year, leave it messy, kind of compare it more to the Deshaun Watson thing where everyone knows he doesn't want to be here, but hang on to him and try to make the best out of a awkward situation. I mean, think of the matchups you could set up if you could force Houston and UT to have to play. Maybe have the potential matchups with Cincinnati and Oklahoma. If you can get that, at least for 1 year, that'll make ratings. That'll give buzz, especially in those markets, especially if Houston and UT have to make, whether it's for football, especially in basketball, with a lot of these schools have good men's basketball programs as well. I think you milk it and try to make the best out of an awkward situation. Now, turn around and you look at it from the American Athletic Conference perspective. You could do the same thing where you'd imagine, like you said, if Houston and Cincinnati are meeting, whether it's like the American Athletic Conference championship game, and regardless of whatever sport, you'd probably get brought up. But I don't know. Just from a selfish standpoint, there's two different things where I'd say I would love it if the Big 12 was selfish and they had that gap year. But from an American standpoint, I don't know if you could compare it apples to oranges, where maybe it's better for them to have to move on just in terms of it's not as much benefit of them hanging on to those schools that maybe the Big 12 would have if they try to hang on to OU and UT.
Well, James Tamer comment on this as well. Well, in Andy's scenario, if all the schools stay where they are, that means UCF, BYU, Cincinnati, and Houston will continue getting $6 million per year for 3 more years, rather than $20 million per year. Why do that?
Exactly. And then to look at it from you brought up media standpoints, I'm sitting here and I'm thinking of a scenario where in that year of 14, if you will, if Texas wins the Big 12 tournament championship in basketball, and Chris Beard at the final buzzer, they're on the podium, the stage, and Bob Bowlesby prepares to present the crystal basketball or whatever trophy that signifies them as Big 12 tournament champions, and they walk off the court.
This happened.
The sloppiness that would leave. I mean, the Big 12, they don't want that. They don't want that.
I think this happened, and y'all correct me if I'm wrong on this. When Louisville and Rutgers were in the first year of the American, Louisville men's basketball won championship. Then left. They were in the conference for a year. The American claimed that championship. Louisville is now part of the Atlantic Coast Conference. That was. They claimed the championship for the American. Everybody knew Louisville was going to the ACC. Do we want to do that? But the financial part of it, why, if you're those 4 schools, stay where in your current conferences and get less money if there's a chance for you to go to the Big 12 sooner and get more money? James?
I mean, I agree. I don't see a big reason, sort of, with Texas and OU going to the SEC, like, it's all about money, like we talked about before. They're going into harder competition. Who wants to play Alabama in football rather than, having Baylor and Kansas and those type of teams on your schedule? And so the same thing, Houston, UCF or Cincinnati could have an easier time in the American. But take the money while you can, because $6 million to $20 million, that's 3 times plus a little more than you're making right now. So I think, it makes total sense to just, take the money.
Andy, what were you going to say?
No, I was going to say from that scenario where you look at the 4 schools that potentially it's being reported by multiple outlets that they will apply early next week. From their perspective, I was just going to say you don't wait, especially with the significant financial differences. You look at the 3 American Athletic Conference schools, whether they're making $6 million a year, 7, to immediately change that out to $20 million. You're going to want to make that switch as soon as possible. What I was mentioning was from the Big 12 standpoint, like you mentioned, it might be a little bit more complicated for OU and UT to have to make those payouts. But at the end of the day, I could totally see each school, UT and OU, leaving to the SEC sooner, and then having these 4 schools join the Big 12 in an expedited process. Honestly, with just how fast the entire scenario has moved within the last 48 hours.
I think ESPN, the TV networks, are playing a big part in this. Some folks don't like that. That could be the reality of the situation. When UConn left the American for the Big East, they gave 12 months notice rather than the required 18, 24 months, whatever. they negotiated a $17 million settlement. That $17 million, 11 of it came as in the form of the American did not pay UConn their share, the money they were supposed to get. So it wasn't UConn. It wasn't the fact of UConn paying it to the American. The American just kept it. They kept what UConn was going to get, and UConn paid the remainder, $5-6 million over 2-3 years, something like that. So in a scenario like that with negotiations, and obviously that's a bigger difference. UConn football was nowhere near Cincinnati football from the American perspective. So if the American says, we're just not going to give you your full share, pay the balance, and we're leaving 12 months. How about that?
I'll add something. I think the Houston, Cincinnati, BYU, I think all of them moving to the Big 12 will make the school more marketable. Maybe they'll get bigger name athletes coming in, so that'll also help generate money from the school. But I mean, just a TV contract alone, $20 million versus $6 million, that's a big deal. But I think they could recruit more money by moving into the Big 12, because they'll be able to, get bigger athletes, and they'll be able to do much more with their programs in the Big 12.
Agreed. And James and Andy, U of A's announced their what is Here We Go campaign, the results of the campaign, the $1 billion that they raised 18 months ahead of schedule. Mm-hmm. Part of that campaign, I believe someone pledged $50 million. If other donors donated $50 million, this person was going to match up to $50 million. So U of H has money. U of H alums have money. I think Tillman's tired of going into his pocket to support the program. If U of H has other wealthy alums, I think Tamer makes a good point. U of H in the Big 12, if and when it becomes official with the announcements, I feel certain that the phone in the office is going to start ringing. Where do I make a donation to the program again?
Kris, I'm sorry.
Go ahead.
What was that campaign goal? You said the total. Here we go.
$1 billion.
$1 billion. Okay.
Yep. It started, 5 years ago, and the goal is to raise $1 billion by 2022, something like that, and it reached it by 2020 last year.
So you said you're matching up to $50 million. You said
correct. That's part of it. Yeah.
You're matching up to 50. Got it.
Yeah. I'm gonna go into my my sock drawer and donate. I'm the one with the $50 million, matching donation. Yeah.
I already know. I know.
Yeah, y'all know I'm doing this as a side hustle right here, folks. On the sports. But yeah.
Yeah, you know what, Kris? You put 50 mil, I'll put the other 50 mil. Let's do it. We might as well make that bid for the SEC. No,
yeah. I mean, let's do it.
That makes 3 of us. I'll match Andy and Kris with $50 billion.
So James, you in too, man? Go and make it $200 million, man. We're straight.
James, you got next.
Let's go. Yeah. I mean,
but yeah, I mean, the video presentation was nice. The donations from, I don't remember the total number of donors, but it was a few thousand. And the range of donations was from as little as $5 up to that $50 million.
Yeah,
that's
Kris,
the range.
And to kind of stay on that point, Joseph Duarte of the Houston Chronicle literally tweeted out a poll just probably like a few hours ago where he asked, would people be more inclined to buy season tickets and attend UH home games if they were admitted into the Big 12? And so far, a whopping 87% out of about 483 votes. So not the biggest sample size, but 87% is still, they're saying, yes, they will buy season tickets if UH joins the Big 12. So that could be another factor too. Maybe you see a rise in attendance, especially in those early years when we mention it, a lot more interstate rivalries with not only Texas Tech, who they play tomorrow, but Baylor, TCU, all these schools, even with Oklahoma State and those schools, there's a lot more local intrigue, and you could not only fans here would be more excited about those rivalry matchups. We kind of mentioned it, how in the American Athletic Conference there isn't really that type of rivalry, especially in football. You don't really feel it. In basketball, a little bit. You've seen a rivalry rise with Memphis, but I don't think it'd be as big as, say if UH and Baylor have to play each other every year, especially after what happened this past year in the Final Four.
See, apparently he could be joking, but we got somebody who's watching, said depending on how other alums move, he's going to donate over $100K. So, hey, all for it. But yeah, Andy, UVH versus Baylor, UVH Texas Tech, UVH TCU, basketball, UVH Kansas. Man, from a basketball perspective,
this conference
I am all for this basketball. Basketball wise, for sure.
For sure.
Yeah. Hey, Kris, do you think U of H moving into the Big 12? I know he was talking about Joseph Duarte saying that fans said they would buy season tickets. Do you think more fans would buy season tickets to the women's basketball games if they move into the Big 12?
Some will. I think, especially with Texas women leaving, going to the SEC, Kim Mulkey leaving Baylor, going to the SEC for LSU, I think women's basketball in the Big 12 is wide open going forward. And Coach Huey and the program could assume that top spot.
They might get a sample. They play Baylor this season.
Yeah, and they could beat Baylor this year. And they have, the fellas are too, official visits on campus as we speak on men's basketball and women's basketball. And women's basketball, the recruits reached out and asked the coaches, this is what I heard. So I hear y'all going to the Big 12. They're already talking about this. This is the recruits.
Yeah.
This could be a boon for U of H. And just imagine from U of H perspective, Cincinnati's perspective, the new schools. You can tell recruits, we are going to be a Power 5 program. Question for you, James, from Juan. What is the feel on campus around these Big 12 developments leading up to the Texas Tech game, which we're going to talk about in a few minutes? But because that was a plan all along, then this news broke. Well, but James answers that.
Well, in terms of the Texas Tech game, I can tell you there's definitely a buzz and excitement on campus. Last week at the Cage Rage pep rally, the line was wrapped around the whole stadium almost. It was crazy when I was walking in. I was surprised by that. And I know the university just announced yesterday, I think they ran out of all the student tickets they were allotted. So they are giving up more. So I know students are excited. Part of it because, they haven't had a normal football experience in 18 months or whatever. But then also, there's been a lot of hype around this team, and I think people are starting to buy in. And then in terms of the Big 12, just from UH alum, fans, students, I mean, people are excited because this is something a lot of people have been waiting for a while. And they look at this as a new opportunity. Students have seen, the university on the rise under Dr. Couture, and now, maybe getting into that next level as an athletics program. It's just an exciting feeling for a lot of students on campus that I've interacted with and things like that.
I'm going to show my age as a U of H alum from 94, class 94. The growth on campus, in facilities, atmosphere, it's night and day. Basketball was almost in a coma when I was there. Me and three friends, we were like what is it called now, James? The Cage Rage at the Fertitta Center right now with the fans. We were that. The four of us, we were the taunteurs of the visiting teams. The four of us. That was it. We sat behind the opponent's bench and heckled the hell out of opponents. So much so, we went to conference Southwest Conference Championship, one of the players for Texas Tech remembered us. Weren't you the guys who heckled it? Yes. Okay. But it was the four of us. So to see reports of cage rage, students lining up around the stadium last week, that blows my mind. Because the apathy when I was there was just massive. Go ahead, Will.
James, just to make sure I heard you right. Did you say they ran out of student tickets to give? So they give away student tickets, or do students buy tickets? Or
no? So they give them away. So they had 5,000 allotted for the game tomorrow at NRG, and the university announced either this morning or last night that they ran out, but they were getting more. I don't know how many more they were given, but I know even like at Cage Rage was when they first were giving them out. You had to get these ones in person since it's at NRG, and the line was ridiculously long. And then they had them at the box office right outside the stadium all week for students to come by and pick up tickets.
Wow.
Yeah, well, students could get free tickets for football games, and I believe for basketball games too. They just have to do them quickly. Like men's basketball student tickets, like they
in 30 seconds
out. Yeah, but they're cleaned out just because they're free, and it's like the hottest ticket at the University of Houston. And it's good to see that transitioning over in football. But yeah, students don't have to pay for tickets, at least for the designated student section. Now, once those run out, you got to pay.
Impressive. Can I go out on a limb?
Yes, sir.
If Houston joins the Big 12, just to guess on my part, I think students will start paying for tickets. That's impressive to me, though, that they give students tickets.
And see, James, Andy, y'all correct me on this. Isn't this part of their student fees, though? I mean, are they paying for it on that end? You got to register. If I'm wrong, let me know.
Probably. I'm not entirely sure what all the fees are structured for, but I wouldn't be surprised.
Yeah, I'm not 100% sure, but I mean, it might be built in. But I know like other schools like A&M and stuff have like, $150 athletic pass that students have to buy. There's nothing like that, so it might be built in, or it might just be, a perk of being a student. I'm not 100% sure.
I mean, can we just talk about though? If we talk about Kris's time at the university versus like me, James, and Andy's time, it's just amazing what Rena Couture has done. Like in the last 10 years she's been there. She's been there for a little while, at least a decade, right? Right, yeah. So it's kind of awesome to see like the school come full circle from it being 4 guys in the cage for Kris per se, and then now it's like overcrowded and students are like getting to the games at the Fertitta Center so many minutes early just to get a seat in the cage or a ticket. And I remember when I was at the university, I too used to try to get a ticket just to sit in the cage to get the experience, and every time I thought I was early enough, it never worked. So, but yeah. I think moving into the Big 12 with Rena Couture under the direction, I mean, that's just one more thing to add to, all she's done for athletics. And she's made it very clear that she's all for building up athletics at the University of Houston.
Yeah, I mean, adding on to Tamer's point real quick, at Cage Rage last week, I spoke to Chris Pesman, the UH Vice President of Athletics, and he talked to me about really how, the UH fan base is really young, and they're really growing into this university and support of the athletics from the students, the alumni. And so he just gave me firsthand accounts, just, from his view, how he's seen it grow and how he expects it, to continue to be on the rise for a while. And I mean, we've seen that evident with what we've been talking about with tickets and all that, and just, the big, more and more support each year, it seems like, behind UH athletics. Agreed.
One of the decisions to build more dorms on campus has helped, I think, students feeling a part of athletics. I mean, you guys are part of Renaissance. When I was there and after I left, oh my gosh, it was just awful. It was you could walk around campus and not know it was game week. No signage, nothing. So the improvements, I mean signs like the signs for election campaigns, candidates, nothing like that. So the changes from my time to now, enjoy it. Enjoy it. It's great to see. Kudos to Torino Couture and the people who are making it happen. And the students today, the young alums, continue this forward. Because at Houston Athletics, the future can be very bright if y'all continue supporting the program. Before we get into U of H, Texas Tech football matchup, Will, I want to get your thoughts on last night's Ohio State-Minnesota game. Any concerns? Buckeyes did win.
Mm-hmm.
Any concerns about the defense?
Oh, very much so. Absolutely. Specifically the linebackers. As you said, Ohio State did win 45-31 with the freshman quarterback first start on the road. C.J. Stroud performed typically as you thought he would, had struggles in his first half, and came on in the second half through 4 touchdown passes, ended up with 294 through a pick. But that defense, absolutely. Ohio State played last night without their starting cornerbacks. They started a true freshman, Denzel Burke, at the boundary corner, freshman from Scottsdale, Arizona. Held his own. Cameron Brown was a late scratch. Seven Banks on the other side. No reports yet as to why they missed, but Cam is expected to play next week versus Oregon at the shoe. But the linebackers are fair at best, to the point that a running back at the beginning of fall camp 3 weeks ago switched positions to linebacker, and he got extended playing time last night. So
are they young? Are they freshmen as well? Are they been there a while? What's the deal?
No, they've been there. The starting linebackers from last year left. They're gone. They exhausted their eligibility. Pete Warner was a second-round pick for the New Orleans Saints, Tuf Borland, for the Minnesota Vikings. They just don't have the experience. They're aged. They're juniors, one sophomore, but they just don't have that game experience, and it showed. I mean, the defensive line pretty much held its own. I mean, that defensive line is with Haskell Garrett, Zach Harrison, Tyreek Smith, but the linebackers are going to be a crucial. It's going to be key, and with Oregon coming in here next week, is at least we now have film, and you have 8 days to get them together, and hopefully they improve before next Saturday at the shoe.
Appreciate that, sir. And Will, that's what Will's going to do. Will's going to give us Big Ten updates, especially about the Ohio State going forward. This is all part of Folks Talking Sports. So don't roll your eyes about what you're talking about. I'm not talking about U of H. We're not talking about the Rockets. Folks Talking Sports. At some point, I may talk about World Cup qualifying matches and the 0-0 0-0 draw U.S. had last night against L3. That's awful. Against 10th ranked in the world, a draw against the 64th team in the world. Do better. Got to do better with that. But okay, James, Houston, Texas Tech. Break it down for me.
Yeah, so this is a big one. Houston, the whole program, they've been talking about since their loss to Hawaii in the bowl game last year, that this 2021 is going to be this year of redemption. They're going to turn it around. They're sick of losing, and the 2 losing seasons in Holgerson's first 2 years are not going to carry over into this year. And I mean, this is a big game to prove themselves, because while Texas Tech has been, a team that's been in the mid to bottom tier of the Big 12 in recent years, this Texas Tech team is much improved. They bring in a quarterback in Tyler Shuck from Oregon, who started every game for Oregon last year, led them to the Fiesta Bowl. So they have experience there. Their defense, which has been, non-existent really in previous years, showed some improvement last year. And they brought in a lot of key transfers, especially in the secondary, and then they have a few in linebacker. So I think their defense will show improvement this year. And when you look at Houston's schedule, I've already talked about this on previous shows, just how it's not a good schedule in terms of strength. This is their opportunity to make a statement. If they beat Rice and Grambling in the next few weeks, I mean, a win's a win, but no one's going to care that much. They're expected to win these games. this is their chance to, come out and make a statement against a quality opponent in a big-time atmosphere, playing at NRG in front of, they're estimating, north of 50,000 fans. So, I mean, if this is going to be the year that the program's emphasized, we're redeeming ourselves, we're going to put UH on the map and get back to where we want it to be. This is where it starts tomorrow night against Texas Tech.
Who have wide receivers as that position gotten strengthened? I think previous shows that position was, what would say, an area of concern for the Cougs.
Yeah.
Has that changed in practice?
Not really. I mean, they've got to go with who they've got. The Monday, Dana Holgerson said that wide receiver Bryson Smith, who is expected, to play a decent role with the team, is no longer with the program as he is no longer enrolled in school. So that's a big drop off there. And I mean, so they're really like I've talked about before, they're relying on guys to step up. Tank Dell stepped up last year and led the team in receptions, but he's going to have to take a bigger role if he wants to be that true number one receiver. And then they're going to have other guys, whether it's Texas Tech transfer Keyshawn Carter or any other guy that it might be. They're going to have to step up and make their impact, because UH really does. That's their biggest area of concern right now is wide receiver. They don't have that depth that they would like. And yeah.
Andy, what are your thoughts on U of H tomorrow versus Texas Tech?
Yeah, it's funny with all the Big 12 noise that we've been talking about. It's only fitting that it's going to be UH against Texas Tech. It'd be funny if they added the stipulation of UH won, they're in the Big 12. But kind of what James said. I think the most intriguing thing when it comes to on the field standpoint, I'm just curious to see what the defense looks like. Obviously, last year, at least at the beginning of the season, they showed improvement. They were really dominant whenever they tried to stop the run against Navy, against BYU, against Tulane. They had really three strong performances to open the season, and then injuries and COVID and all that really derailed any chances that defense had. And really after that Navy game, they struggled to stop anybody. So I'm be interested to see how Doug Belk has his first full season as the defensive coordinator does, and how the unit kind of looks a little bit different under him. And they're a much more veteran-led defense from years past. So I feel like that unit is probably the one that'll be the most ready to go. And like James mentioned, you mentioned the struggles on offense for the receiver core, but I think overall across the board, that offense is relatively a bit of an unknown, just in terms of a lot of the players that they're adding, whether it was from transfers. I know one player that might be a name to watch for would be tight end Seth Green, who both Clayton Tune and I believe Dana Holgerson were high on him. James, you can add on to this, but I know during the practice I got to see like a couple of weeks ago, I was one of Clayton Tune's main target. And even at the running back position, it's a little bit interesting. Obviously, Mobile Car, who's been here, it seemed like forever. I think it might be his 6th season with the program.
Mm-hmm.
You see him being the running back one, but even behind him right now at the depth chart that they released on Sunday, I believe they had Chandler Smith as the second option. Then you also have the transfer from Texas Tech, Tajon Henry, I believe. So a lot of unknown with the offense, but like James said, the strength of schedule is low, and this is honestly the year where the program, like for multiple reasons, with the Big 12 noise coming around, this is the year where UH football has to start making some noise. And when you look at the schedule, and they can start off with a win against Texas Tech, honestly, they don't have any like big opponents except that stretch that in the middle, when there's like an 18-day stretch where they play 3 games. There may be a potential upset, but if they can beat Texas Tech, they might be able to pile on some wins and really start getting some buzz for this program and for the season.
I'm going to be the black sheep here really quickly, because I know we mentioned that Donna Holgerson and they called this their year of redemption, but I think this is also a year of redemption for Texas Tech. They too has had, like you said, they've been at the bottom of the conference, and this is their chance also to prove themselves as well. So I think they're going to come out there just as hungry as, the Coogs and fight for their point to prove like, okay, we can do this as well. Not saying that Houston is that big of a threat to Texas Tech. I'm sure that's how they're thinking about it. But it's kind of funny, right, Andy, that they're playing Texas Tech considering there's all of this talk about them moving into the Big 12, but also Texas Tech head coach, like we talked about. I remember me, Andy, and Willie were on like a couple months ago before I went to Tokyo, and we talked slightly about if Dana Holgerson, will he be here if this is not another record-winning season? And I read a couple articles before this, and I think that's kind of the same talk for Texas Tech head coach as well. They don't. They're saying, the president of the school doesn't expect them to get a 10-win season, but they certainly expect them to do better than a 4-8 season.
Anybody know the line on the game?
The last time I saw Tech was favored by 1 point.
Yeah, I read like 3 articles, and they all favored Tech to win.
Now it's shifted to Houston 1.5 apparently.
Yeah, Houston.
Oh yeah, on CBS, right? Yeah, I just saw that.
So that's still roughly 1.5 either way. That's a pick.
It's a bit of a toss-up. Yeah, it's a toss-up, and I agree.
Yeah, Matt Wells has something to prove, just like Dana Holgerson has something to prove.
And see, that's one of the ironies of the expansion talk. Is U of H is about to become a Power 5, hopefully, member, with football being the weakest link.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
5 years ago, U of H football was the hot ticket, and still didn't get invited to the Big 12. So I think partly that's because the Big 12 is a little desperate because Longhorns and Oklahoma left, and they trying to fill slots and stay relevant, keep that autonomy status. But Texas Tech trying to prove, hey, we are a Power 5 program. Y'all aren't yet. So we're going to prove we're better than you. U of H trying to prove that they belong. So 6 o'clock Saturday, NRG Stadium, ESPN. Okay, who first? Who's going to make a prediction? Who you got?
I mean, I can go if you want.
James.
I wrote this down yesterday. In terms of, I'll start with what I'm looking for with Houston, and then I'll give my prediction. But like for Houston, I have 3 keys, that I'm really looking for. One, Andy hit on before, is if the defensive hype, in terms of depth, lives up to the expectation. I think that will be key if Houston is to win this game. Also, how does the offense start? Last year, the offense only scored 30 total first quarter points. Not good at all. They were coming from behind in almost every game. They've got to start faster. And then how the UHO line performs with, they've had 20-something combinations behind Tune during his starting time. So now they have a consistency. I'm looking to see how that performs. I think UH does give a good showing and shows a lot of positives. But in the end, I have Texas Tech winning 34-31.
Andy?
Yeah, I agree with James. And honestly, he hit everything right on the mark in terms of the keys, especially with going back to the defense. Look at Texas Tech offense. A lot of it is they're new too, not only with their quarterback that transferred from Oregon, Kyle. What's his first name? I
Tyler Shuck.
Tyler Shuck. I know his last name is Shuck because we did a show with Day yesterday, and he taught me how to do his name. But a lot of new faces on that offense, even a new offensive coordinator. So UH's defense should have an advantage there in terms of they have the continuity. They're much more familiar with not only the veteran leaders on the team, but just being in the system that they've been in. I could see that being an advantage for Houston, but this is something I debate. I'm gonna go with what I predicted last on our yesterday's episode of Pawd, Slama, Jama, and that's I got Houston pulling it out, but I think this will be a high-scoring game, and I think Houston wins it 41-38.
Tamer?
All right. I mean, I'm gonna go Houston because that's instinct, but I read something that said, I think James talked about the offense and starting off. I read something that I think Clayton had 26 touchdowns last season, but 19 interceptions. I think certainly if the Cougars expect to win tomorrow, he's gonna have to throw that out the window, and he's gonna need to get hit. He's like the leader on the team on offense wise, so I think he's gonna have to hype his offense team up a little bit, and then defense just gonna have to do their job. And I'm gonna pick Houston to win. I don't have an exact score because I don't want to be wrong, but I'm picking.
There's nothing wrong with being wrong. Just throw it out there.
You guys think it's gonna be a high scoring game? I don't really see it being a high scoring game, but I'll go 35-28 Houston.
Okay, Will, I have done no research prep for tomorrow's game because it's football. If this is basketball, I can give you a good summary and preview, but this is football. Any thoughts, any prediction on tomorrow's U of A Texas Tech game?
Oh yeah. I think it's personal. With I think James said it. Matt Wells' seat is a little warm. In 2018, there was a lot of people in Lubbock wanted Dana Holgerson, funny enough, instead of Matt Wells, and so now he's coming in here, and I think he's coming in to show A, Texas Tech made the right choice, and B, he's going to put some. I think he's coming in here to wanting to put something on Houston to make his point. And Sonny Cumbie's offense, I mean, his air raid everywhere he's gone, whether it's TCU, now Texas Tech, his offense is that air raid, quick strike, track meet, running up and down the field. I think it is going to be a high-scoring game. I'll say Texas Tech 63-37.
Oh, so you're not even giving.
Woo!
Okay, that's a route there, Will. Okay. I'm picking.
I'm loyal to no one. No,
I'm picking Texas Tech because until proven otherwise, I don't have any confidence in Dana Holgerson. So, prove me wrong, please.
If I had to choose, I'm choosing Matt Will. I'm choosing Tyler Show over Clayton Tune just because of what Kris said. I mean, the last couple of years we've seen him play, it just hasn't been anything intriguing. And Tyler led Oregon into like 2 winning seasons, not 2 winning seasons like championship wise, but he did what he had to do coming from a smaller school once he got the chance to be at Texas Tech.
I'm picking Texas Tech. Oh, okay, James, Andy, you talked about Houston's defensive line having quality depth. How about the secondary?
Yeah, so in terms of secondary, they're led by experienced corners and Marcus Jones, who's one of the most highly rated corners in all the nation, and also he's arguably the best punt returner in the nation. And then Demarion or Pepe Williams, Pepe's his nickname. Those are both experienced guys who are veterans, and so they've got some experience there. The big thing is they're a little undersized, and Texas Tech's best receiver, their number one guy is Eric. I don't know how to pronounce his last name. I don't want to butcher it, but he's 6'3". Marcus Jones is 5'10", I think. So it will be interesting to see that matchup. A highly talented corner, but having to make up for his lack of size. I think that will be an interesting matchup. And then in the secondary, they're led by Hassan Hippolyte at safety, and then they also got a few other guys back there that have some experience. But yeah, so they've got leaders back there, but also there will be some new faces as well shuffled in there.
Andy, any thoughts on U of H secondary?
Regarding the secondary, no, James hit it right on the head again, just in terms of the two main corners that are leading them with Demarion Williams and Marcus Jones. But I'm kind of interested to see the linebacker position that's kind of led by Deontay Anderson. I know one player that both Doug Belk and Dana Holgerson have been high on, and even some of the players too, is Manny Nunnery. And James, I know you can talk about him a little bit more, but just in terms of what they've seen from him, they've been really impressed with him through training camp. And like I mentioned, the coaches have been high on him. So I'm interested to see what he can produce on the field tomorrow.
Yeah, in terms of Manny Nunnery, he's a young guy. Doug Belk, in his press conference the other day, said he would play a lot. We'd see a lot of him. The biggest thing that stood out to me, obviously, we haven't gotten to see these guys play live. We've seen them a little bit in practice. But Deontay Anderson described Manny Nunnery as one of the best pure athletes he's ever seen, regardless of the sport. And there's videos of him, Nunnery, dunking basketballs and stuff. So he's got that athleticism, and I do think Andy brought up a good point with him that he could be, one of those surprise faces that makes a big impact for the team because he's just, his build and his skill set fits well, and obviously he's been impressive in practice according to all his coaches and players.
Yeah, and one more name I wanted to add from the defensive line, Logan Hall. Going back to Doug Belk, he had high praise for him this week too. He said he could potentially be one of the best players in the country, and something along with one of the transfers they added. I'm kind of blanking on his name. Baxton, Latrell Baxton, I think that's his name. Bankston, correct. Yeah. Who, he said that one of the things that attracted him to U of H was just the recent success they've had the last few seasons in developing upfront defensive linemen with Ed Oliver and Peyton Turner that have gone the first round in the NFL draft. So this defense they've been high, and it's been something that I feel like is going to be the strength of this team. And I'm just interested to see how they do against, like Will said, an air raid type of offense that can put up points on the board.
Hearing that from you guys almost convinced me to change my pick. Still picking Texas Tech to win. So 41-31. Yeah. I hope, as an alum, I'm wrong. No. But if they do win tomorrow, it sets up with the soft schedule pretty much the rest of the season for a promising, football season for the program, assuming everybody stays healthy. Well, we got the prediction. I mean, because weeks ago, I predicted that to lose it against Texas Tech, so I'm not going to change that. We still kind of all picked them to go 8-4, but based on the week schedule. But U of H tomorrow, guys, think about this. Games on ESPN. The announcers, do y'all know who's calling the game?
Yeah, I know the color commentator is going to be Robert Griffin III.
Oh, this is the game. Okay.
Yeah.
Well, I think a few times we're going to hear during the broadcast, well, Houston's joining the Big 12. Reports are that Houston's going to join the Big 12. Michael Resco, you will be hearing that said all season long. Houston's going to be joining the Big 12. Houston's going to be joining the Big 12. Basketball games. National matchups, the Virginia game. How much longer do you want to hear that? For a full 27 months? Come on, Commissioner. Reach an agreement, negotiate a deal, move forward for everybody involved. The schools that you're going to invite to fill in to replace U of H, Cincinnati, and UCF, just move forward. That's my take on it. I'm not naive. Folks want to cling to money and cling to pride and all this other kind of stuff, but I hope one season is done. And one of the ironies for me personally, for weeks, I was planning to attend Big 12 Basketball Media Day this season, assuming if they want to have one in person. Well, Wednesday I was told they're going to have one in person. They're trying to finalize the details of location, but I know all that. I got the dates. Men's one day, women's another. So, and the big person I spoke to said, Kris, glad you haven't forgotten about us. So I'm looking forward to this, man, from basketball. But I got y'all on to talk football throughout this season on Folks Talking Sports. And that's what we're going to do. Going to start with Tamer. How can folks find you on social media? Oh, Tamer and her vlog will vlog, VLOG, vlog about the Olympics. Tamer, real quick, let's talk about that experience.
Oh, it was very awesome. If you guys have not subscribed to my YouTube channel, please do so. You can find me on YouTube at Tamer Knight. I kind of brought folks along with my vlog to kind of showcase what it is that I was doing while I was there. I served as a production assistant for Tokyo Tonight with Kenny Mayne and Carrie Champion. They were our show hosts, and I was the production assistant in the feature department. So I just served as coming up with story ideas, creating highlights and bumpers for the show. And I worked with the producers. There was about 3 of them, Alexa, Adam, and Sarah. And so I was just kind of their guinea pig. I did whatever they told me to do, but very, very great opportunity, and I look forward to doing it again. You guys can find me on Twitter and Instagram at T Knight Sports. That's TKNIGHT Sports, and be sure to subscribe to my YouTube channel and watch my NBC Tokyo 20 Olympics vlog.
Will, how can folks find you, sir?
They can find me on all social platforms. Twitter and Instagram at Will Gibson 7, Facebook, the Will Knows Facebook page, and also the www.wtgsports.com.
James, how can folks find you?
Yeah, Twitter at JDM2186, and then all my work is on the dailycougar.com.
Andy?
Yeah, they can follow me on Twitter at Yanez_5. Be sure to check out our podcast, Pawd Slama Jama. That's PAW Slama Jama. Dayon and I had a new episode come out on Thursday, which we kind of did a little breakdown of this upcoming matchup between the University of Houston and Texas Tech. James and I will both be at the game on Saturday, so be sure to follow us on Twitter. I'm sure we'll be providing constant live updates throughout the game and post-game reaction. By the way, Kris, they will. I believe they said that they'll have post-game conference in person for those in attendance.
That's correct.
So we're back, and I mean, it makes sense. You have to be required to be vaccinated to be able to get a media credential. So hopefully it all goes well. I mean, tomorrow, big day. Finally, it's here.
The NHL has announced that media can interview players in locker rooms. I saw that, I think, earlier today. The NBA this week has announced, different criteria for vaccinated players and unvaccinated players, staff, personnel, fans seating within 15 feet on the court to the players, all those things. I hope, Will and I talked about this, with Andy as well. I do hope the NBA allows locker room access for the vaccinated folks, because it's different. It's better to talk to players off the record sometimes, to just chop it up with them and just get to know them as people, joke with them, talk about their families and just different things, other sports, other interests. It helps going down in the future for stories and access, things like that. Everybody, thank you for joining the show. I'm Kris Gardner of Houston Roundball Review. Website you see there, thehrr.com, as well as HoustonRoundballReview.com. Houston Roundball Review on YouTube, Houston Roundball Review on Instagram, Twitter, VHR Review. Folks talking sports. I think, I might have the same guest on next week, next Friday. Next Friday could be a big day if the president's make it official with a vote. So how do y'all stand for joining us doing this again next Friday, same time? Tamer, that work for you?
Yep.
Will, that work for you?
Sure.
James?
Sounds good.
Andy?
Yep.
Okay, viewers, Juan M., thank you very much for tuning in, man. Don't be a stranger. We're going to be talking a lot of U of H sports throughout the season. U of H basketball, we got sponsors for that. That's starting in November for college basketball season. But if anyone is interested in sponsoring these shows going forward, hit me up, hit one of us up, and we'll make it happen, because we believe in what we're doing. We think it's a good platform to share our insight with the viewers. And thanks for the questions and the comments. Everyone, take care and see you next Friday.
Peace.
See you later.